I walk a straight line, shackled and chained. Oh, gruesome Gertie is calling my name. There is no mercy in this penitentiary. Just ask the Hillstring Gang or Angola 3. I'm here for life, I'm here to die. Inside these walls, inside the wire. And when the wolf cries, I know it's over. Oh, bloody Angola. Oh, bloody Angola.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bloody
Angola,
a podcast 142 years in the making.
the complete story of America's bloodiest prison.
And I'm Jim Chapman.
And I'm Woody Overton, and I got something to say before we get started.
Yes.
We are nominated under the People's Choice Podcast Awards for 2023 as under the history section.
Love it.
As we're nominated as one of the best in the world. So
Yeah.
we need y'all to go. Please go and vote. It's podcastawards.com, and they'll have you enter in your email and a password, and that's to stop people from cheating, the bots. But you can enter as many times as you want to from different emails. And then they'll send you a confirmation email. But right underneath that, when you fill it in, they ask you, would you be a final judge? So what happens is this process, when it closes at the end of this month, they're going to take the top 10 in each category that make the finals, and then like 20,000 of the people that voted, they're going to randomly select them to be final judges. And so if you would check that you'll be a final judge. You don't have to judge in every category, and you don't have to vote in every category. But you do that, and you go under it. And I've been nominated, and Kelly Jennings has been nominated for Unspeakable, our dear friend, for at the Adam Curry's People's Choice Podcast Year Award. I've been nominated for Best Male Host in the World for Real Life, Real Crime. Both Kelly and I have been nominated under Best True Crime, Real Life, Real Crime, and Real Life, Real Crime Daily, and the original Real Life, Real Crime, and nominated under Drama and Storytelling. And you can also fill out the most influential podcaster, and you could do that also. But and Bloody Angola is nominated under we found out last night that Bloody Angola is also nominated under the Adam Curry's People's Choice, which is the biggest one, y'all.
Yeah.
Of the year awards. So thank you so much, and we love y'all. But voting is going to close in the next, I think,
31st.
Yeah, 31st. And so huge honor for Bloody. Bloody deserves it. And it's a history podcast, basically. I mean, we're telling you the history of America's bloodiest prison.
That's right.
And so thank you so much. It's such an honor. And I know it's a pain in the ass to take the time to go do that, but it really validates what we're doing and gives us a shot in the arm, and
Helps us to bring in
helps
more.
us to keep going and bring other more content to you. And speaking of that, our Patreon members, thank you so much. We appreciate you. You rock. Couldn't do the show without you. And y'all, look, how old are we now?
We're in Woody, that's a good question.
It seems like it's been forever.
Yeah.
But in a good way.
Yeah. I think we're coming up on our year.
Yeah, it's got to be close to the year. I mean, like real close.
I'll have to look that up.
So
next
it's
episode.
very,
I'll tell y'all.
very sweet to be nominated for both at the Adam Curry's People's Choice Award, and then under the history section. It's just a real real testament to what we're doing and that y'all love the show. So thank you so much.
100%. And history, both Woody and I are big history buffs.
Right.
And so that's a cool category for us to be nominated in. It's different. Both of us have been nominated for other podcasts that we do in the past. But this is kind of a cool one because we both just love history. And we know all of y'all do too.
So this is our first one that we've done it together.
Yeah.
So it means a lot to me too.
Absolutely. Me as well. And so we're going to get into, we brought you some we brought you a couple episodes with Death Chamber, talking about these guys, telling a little bit about their crimes and their executions and all that. And this is a continuance of that. This will be the final Death Chamber that we cover. We do have, I want to say this before we start, for our patron members, we're going to do a bonus episode with the true final Death Chamber, which is the last few that we're not going to cover right now here. But after we're done with this, keep in mind we've pretty much covered all the people since 1980 that have been executed via gruesome Gertie or lethal injection at Angola. So we're going to go ahead and start it up, and we're going to tell you first about Alvin Moore. He was executed by electrocution in 1987. I'm going to tell you a little bit about his case. And it starts with Aaron Wilson. So Aaron Wilson and his wife Joanne and their 4-month-old daughter Regina lived in Bossier City, Louisiana. Alvin Moore was a former neighbor and co-worker of Aaron's at the Veterans Administration Hospital there. On July 9th of 1980, Moore picked up Arthur Lee Stewart Jr. and Dennis Sloan in his automobile. So they're riding around, and at some point, Moore goes to the Wilson's house. And he decides he wants to get some money. They supposedly owed him some money. So according to Sloan, who was with him, Moore knocked on the door and Joanne Wilson answered it. She and Moore talked briefly and Moore entered the house. 5 minutes later, Sloan followed Moore to the door of the house. The door was slightly ajar and Sloan saw Moore and Joanne making sex, as he would call it, on the floor of the living room.
Really?
Sloan returned to Moore's automobile, and he was going to tell Stewart about it, what was going on, of course. Man, they're in there doing it on the floor. Stewart and Sloan then entered the house. Moore and a crying Miss Wilson had gone into the bedroom. Uh-oh, she's crying. So it's, where baby Regina was also crying. Moore was going crazy, ransacking the house. Joanne Wilson was described as panicky and scared. She also appeared to be frightened of Moore. So Sloan, in testimony, said that Joanne Wilson said, "Take whatever you want, just get out of my house." Right. Sloan also testified that Miss Wilson asked Moore not to hurt her or her child. After being threatened, Miss Wilson gave Moore a box of Kennedy $50. Sloan took a white bucket with $18.80 in pennies. Nice. And Stewart took some stereo components. This is back in the days when they
had the hi-fi.
Right. Exactly. Sloan and Stewart left the house and heard Joanne Wilson screaming behind them. Moore runs out of the house 5 minutes later. He's carrying a knife in his hand. Stewart testified that this was the same knife that Moore had on the back seat of his car when the group drove up to the house. Moore told Stewart and Sloan, "I'm fixing to trip y'all out. I stabbed that bitch 9 times." Right. The three then drove to Church's Fried Chicken and McDonald's. Joanne Wilson.
Paid in pennies, probably.
Yeah. Joanne Wilson managed to call the police 911. The call was received by the Bossier City Police Department. A unit got dispatched, and a patrolman arrives at the house 2 minutes later. He knocked on the front door, but Joanne Wilson said she was unable to open it. He kicked the door in and found blood, of course, all over the living room. Right. Officer Fields found Miss Wilson lying in the bed in the bedroom, and both rooms were in disarray. The victim was nude from the waist down, was bleeding from her vagina, chest, and arms. She was having difficulty breathing and told Officer Fields she was dying. He asked her who stabbed her, and she responded, "Elvin." Fields asked her, that was the patrolman, if she knew Elvin, and she replied he was a black guy that used to live down the street. It was obvious to Fields that Miss Wilson was dying, and she died about 10 minutes later. So they arrest Moore at 1 a.m. the next morning. Of course, they find those stereo components we told you about. The white bucket and pennies were found in the trunk of his car. So they had all the evidence there. He goes through trials. He's found guilty, and he was executed in 1987. Moore made no final statement to the public.
Yeah.
His attorney said his last words were to him, in which he said, "They can kill my body, but they can't kill my soul."
Yeah, boy, you better hope your soul was right.
Yeah. Your soul might be headed somewhere you don't want to be.
You were playing God when you killed your victim.
That's
after
right.
You raped her and stabbed her and all that. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
These stories, y'all, are disturbing, but you know what? These are death penalty cases, and there's a reason we have the death penalty. Some people don't deserve to breathe. I'm going to tell you about Benjamin Berry, okay? And on January 30th, 1978, Benjamin Berry and David Pennington drove from Baton Rouge to Metairie, which is about a 45-minute drive. Metairie being on the outskirts of New Orleans, y'all, with the intention of robbing the Metairie Bank and Trust Company. Berry entered the bank and drew a 9mm automatic pistol, and there was an exchange of gunfire between Berry and Cochran. Now, Cochran was the Jefferson Parish deputy sheriff working as a guard in the bank, and y'all, that's a common thing. They work extra duty is what it's called. They're side jobs. And when they started shooting, Berry fired 3 shots and Cochran fired 1 shot. Cochran's shot struck Berry in the lower left chest, and then 2 of Berry's shots struck Cochran in the shoulder and the neck, causing Cochran to die. Berry and Pennington fled the scene and hauled ass back to Baton Rouge, where they were both arrested. Now, Berry was indicted for first-degree murder. So, goes through, and naturally he gets found guilty. I mean, it's pretty. I don't know if they had what type of surveillance cameras they had in 78, January 3rd.
Probably not too great.
Yeah, but you got a lot of eyewitnesses, right? And I'm sure they did whatever, because death penalty cases, they have to have a lot of shit. But he was indicted for murder, found guilty, and Benjamin Berry was executed on June 7th, 1987. So, 9 years after. And Berry was convicted in the fatal shooting of Robert Cochran, the off-duty JPSO deputy I told y'all about. And guess what, Jim? He made no final statement. But I'm going to read y'all an article from the New York Times dated June 8th, 1987. It says, a high school dropout condemned for murdering a guard in a bank robbery was put to death early today in Louisiana's electric chair. Old Gruesome Gertie.
Gruesome Gertie.
Benjamin Berry, 31 years old, was executed shortly after midnight, said C. Paul Phelps, Secretary of the Department of Corrections in Baton Rouge. He was the 76th prisoner executed in the United States and the 8th in Louisiana since the United States Supreme Court allowed states to restore the death penalty in 1976. Mr. Berry's appeals ran out late Friday when the Supreme Court refused to stop the execution. And an old buddy of mine and dear friend of my dad, good, bad, and indifferent, and my mom served on the parole board underneath him, and Governor Evan W. Edwards refused to pardon him, right? And he wouldn't step in. Apparently, Mr. Berry had already accepted that his sentence would not be stayed. And on Thursday, he asked the warden at the state prison in Angola to move him off of death row to the isolation cell down the hall from the electric chair so he could be alone. Mr. Berry was convicted in 1978 of killing Robert Cochran, a bank guard, in a bank robbery in Metairie on January 30th, 1978. This was his 8th execution date. The others had been canceled by appeals. He spent Saturday visiting members of his family. The prison warden, Hilton Butler, said, About 30 people held a candlelight vigil in front of the governor's mansion in Baton Rouge to protest the execution, and roughly a dozen people gathered for similar protests in New Orleans. Several death penalty supporters gathered outside the prison's front gate. They wore shirts lettered with the message, "Justice for all, even the victims." The execution was the first of 5 scheduled in Louisiana in the next 2 weeks, and the first in the state since January 4th, 1985.
Wow.
Governor Everest didn't play. He was like, you want a what?
Yeah.
Ride the lightning, bitch.
And I heard you say Hilton Butler in there.
Hilton Butler. No, we talked about Miss Ann before and everything, and my mama knows them all. And his right there grew up in St. Francisville, where they live. I think they still lived there. When I was in school, they were still living there.
I believe they still do. As a matter of fact, the son of Hilton Butler is a listener of Bloody Angola.
Shout out.
Who was also lifelong Angola employed correctional officer.
Yeah.
And has reached out to us a few times, mainly fact checking.
Yeah, right.
So
and that's cool because the history doesn't mean everything that comes out of books isn't always right. It's definitely not as valid as the people who lived it.
That's right. Yeah. So we'd love to have him on the show, and I know you're listening.
Absolutely. Shout out to you. Hey, shout out to all you correctional officers at Bloody Angola and past and current, and the wardens and everybody else. Right?
Yeah, a lot of them listen to us,
right.
And they do reach out and let us know. So the next guy we're going to tell you about is David Dean Martin, or Danae Martin, and he was a killer of 4 minimum here. He killed these 4 people in Terrebonne Parish.
Terrebonne down south.
And he was executed by electrocution in 1985 as well. So a lot of 85s in there. And we're going to give you the facts of the case. In 1977, David Martin, wife, Gloria, began to work in a restaurant lounge owned by Bobby Todd, who was a victim. The next day, she had sexual relations with Todd. That's not good. The following day, she informed her husband of this fact. She refused Martin's request that she quit working for Todd. So basically, she goes home, says, "I'm sleeping with
my boss." And
he says, "Well, you got to quit." And she says, "Nah, I'm not going to quit." So
keep my benefits.
Yeah, that night, Martin goes and he steals a friend's Colt Python 357 Magnum.
That's a bad pistol.
Yeah,
second largest. It used to be the second largest caliber in the world.
So to make matters worse, the firearm was loaded with hollow point bullets, and Martin later purchased an additional box of shells for it. On August 13th.
Shit, it's a revolver. How many bullets?
Yeah.
How many bullets you need? Yeah.
Mike said he's going to kill him good.
Mike killed him good.
Mike would say.
Killed him good.
On August 13th, Martin visited his next door neighbor, Raven Rushing, and Martin told Rushing he was going to shoot Todd. He explained that he was jealous of his wife's relationship with Todd. Right. On August 14th of that year, Martin told another friend, Chester Golden, that his wife was working at the restaurant and would not quit. He indicated that he had a bone to pick with Todd and had waited for the last 2 nights outside Todd's restaurant for an opportunity to get Todd. So he's telling everybody about this. Martin showed Golden the stolen pistol. He told Golden that because he stole the gun from a felon, its theft would not be reported.
True.
Golden told Martin that he looked pretty drug out and had lost weight. Martin replied that he had been up for 2 nights and had not been eating. That evening, according to accounts he later gave, Martin drove to the vicinity of the trailer in which Todd lived. He parked down the road from the trailer so he could approach it in the guise of a hitchhiker on foot. So he's pretending like he's hitchhiking. He entered the trailer and he confronted Todd, who offered him a roll of bills. Here, let me give you some money. And
makes up for banging your wife.
Yeah. So Martin, he ignored that. He basically said, "I just want you to know my name." Then he shoots Todd twice in the chest.
Wow.
He proceeded to shoot 3 other people in the trailer.
Wow.
Todd's bodyguard, he had a bodyguard, and 2 nude females.
What?
They must have been doing something in there.
On a
When
strip
he
club or
come in,
something.
yeah. So Martin inflicted multiple bullet wounds on each of those 4. One of the women was first wounded in the abdomen. She told Martin she was in pain, begged him to finish her. He shot her in the head and killed her.
Wow.
Martin then took the roll of money to make it look like a robbery and left. Around 8 p.m., he returns to Golden's home. He was excited, so he asked Golden, he says, take a ride with me.
Yeah.
During the ride, he tells Goldman, I killed 4 people at the restaurant. Martin said he had not touched anything, and although the authorities might suspect him, they had no proof that he committed those. So he's, although the fact that he told 1,500 people, right? Martin confessed to 4 more people that night. He had told one of them, Pamela Wilson, that he had thrown the gun in the bayou. Martin was arrested a short time later. The sheriff who made the arrest told reporters that Martin appeared strung out on dope at the time. Probably was. Yeah. Martin's brother retained an attorney, a Texas attorney, with 10 years criminal experience and some experience with capital cases. The attorney associated a Louisiana lawyer with limited criminal experience and no experience in capital offenses.
Well, most of the times, even big shot attorneys come out of state because they're not licensed to practice on the Napoleonic Code of Law. They have to get local representation, and then they can take over the case and act under that guy's license.
Yeah, there you go. And that is definitely what happened here. And using the words, walk me or fry me, Martin told counsel in the first meeting to either seek a full acquittal or the death penalty. Right. So how do you like that? Walk me or fry me? Yeah. He didn't want to spend time in jail, in other words.
Well, I got kind of respect for that, actually.
So they decided to fry him.
Right.
And David Martin was executed on January 4th, 1985. He was convicted, obviously, of all 4 of those murders. That's quadruple murder, y'all. Yeah. All of them, of course, being shot to death. And that mobile home, in case you're curious, that was near a town called Houma.
Yeah.
You know, which is way down south.
Yep. And down south, you know, actually where I drive through it every couple of weeks to go fishing.
Yeah, and he was for sure a drug addict. That came out, you know, during his trial. He made no final statement during his execution, but a pardon board clemency hearing that the afternoon before his death, Martin said, to take someone's life is out of character for me. It's not David Martin. I am devastated when I'm done, but I can't remember it. My life has been dedicated to saving lives, helping people, not destroying people. I know I wouldn't willingly take another person's life. Something bad went down, but it's not me. It wasn't right. I don't know. That's all. That's what he said.
You know,
that was his statement.
Hey, idiot. You didn't just take 1, you took 4.
4.
Right? And you know, that's a really, really interesting point. One of the mitigating circumstances in any death penalty case in the series I'm starting next week, I'm not going to give the name up yet, it's death penalty cases. And and I don't get this and I don't understand it, and maybe they changed the law or something, but if you're high and you commit a death penalty infraction, if you will, then they can use that in the death penalty phase to get you off.
Yeah.
And I don't get that. I believe you chose to get fucking high, and whatever you did after that, you're still responsible for it.
Yeah. And you know what, another thing with that case is and I noticed this with a lot of cases, when you have a crime of passion of some sort, and even though this wasn't against, you know, it was because of his wife, it wasn't against his wife, but it seems like these killings are more overboard. They're overkill, if you will.
Well, and he can't say he didn't plan it out because he bought bullets and he stole the gun. He told everybody ahead of time. And I don't care how high you were, you weren't high for that long.
Right.
But, I mean, it certainly raises in some questions when and not victim shaming or blaming, but homie had 2 bodyguards and 2 bodyguards?
Well, he had a bodyguard. Two new females with him.
It must have been a titty bar or something. I don't know. Shame that happened. He didn't give any final last words. Oh,
No.
just to the pardon board.
Yeah, just to the pardon board. Nothing at the actual execution itself.
Yeah, well, very interesting. I did not know about that case. I mean, I have to look into it some more one day. I have some good friends down there. And, anytime you have something, especially and Homa's not that small now, but an older crime like this, an area like that, you can go to that town and find somebody that's of that age range, and they'd be like, holy shit, I can tell you everything.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, all right, let me take you to the next one. Ernest Knighton, all right? And Ernest Knighton, y'all, he was from Bossier Parish, or the crime occurred in Bossier Parish, and Jim talked on the first one, Bossier Parish and Shreveport. They're just right across the river from each other, y'all. That literally the river separates the two, and it's in the far northwestern corner of the state of Louisiana. Literally, when you leave Shreveport, I think it's like 15, 20 miles to the Texas line. But let me tell you about Ernest Knighton. And the facts are taken from the testimony of Miss Michelle, who was the victim's wife, and are as follows. Mr. and Mrs. Shell were working at the Phoenix station on Benton and Shed Road in Bossier City between 8 and 8:30 p.m. And the defendant and another man, Anthony White, walked into the station. White asked for a pack of cigarettes and gave Miss Shell a $1 bill. Well, this tells you how long ago it was, y'all. This was it was murder, and it was on March 17th, 1981. I was 11. I don't know if I was smoking yet, but I was probably getting ready to close. $1 pack was seemed about right on the price. And anyway, he gave Michelle a $1 bill, and when she returned his change, so they were even cheaper than $1, he walked around the service counter and told her, "This is a stick-up." Holding a gun, the defendant also went behind the counter and asked Mr. Shell where the money was kept. Mr. Shell, who had been talking on the telephone, went into the small room in the back of the station to retrieve the money and gave it to the defendant, who had followed him into the room. Miss Shell heard a shot. Mr. Shell was wounded. And from her location, Miss Shell could not actually see her husband, but said that he offered no resistance and said nothing to provoke the defendant into shooting him. The defendant then ran out and told White to bring Michelle along with him. Anthony White grabbed Michelle, who broke loose at the doorway, and retreated back inside the station and locked the door, which then separated her from the two thieves. Mr. Shell died as a result of shock from blood loss from the single gunshot wound through the arm, abdomen, and chest. That's a hell of a shot.
Yeah.
Arm, abdomen, chest. Maybe he was standing above him.
Something like the John F. Kennedy shot
right,
where it went into
the magic bullet.
the governor.
He had to be above him or something. Maybe he's getting out of the safe. That's the only way you can get that angle. That's crazy. So, additional testimony by Wanda Smith, a woman who had driven with the defendant Anthony White and another man, Wayne Harris, to the Phoenix station, revealed that the defendant and White ran from the station, jumped into the car, and had Wanda Smith drive to a motel and get a room. There, an argument over the money began, and waving the gun he used to shoot Mr. Shell, Ernest Knighton stated in Wanda's presence that the man's hand looked like it was fixing to move, so I had to shoot him. So that all comes from the trial, and actually, naturally, he was found guilty. And so Ernest Knighton Jr. was executed on October the 30th, 1984. Knighton was convicted of the shooting and death of Ralph Shell, a Bossier City service station proprietor, during an attempted robbery on March 17, 1981. I want you to notice how fast these executions were. Yeah. This is 3 years, and the other one was the longest one we did today was 9 years. Now they don't execute them anymore.
Yeah,
and I mean, we've covered the people have been on death row 28 years plus years like that. Fuck that, they just need to kill them. So they get Knighton into gruesome Gertie strap them down, and we told y'all about the tie down teams and all that, and basically drug them in, strapped them down, and they say, "Hey, dude." I didn't say, dude. They breathe the death warrant.
No, they might have.
Yeah, right. They breathe the death warrant. You've been sentenced to death by the state of Louisiana. Da, da, da. Do you have any final words? And this is what he said. He said, "I am sorry, more sorry than I can say Mr. Shell is dead and that I am responsible. I feel sorry for Miss Shell and all of Miss Shell's family and friends. I feel sorry for my mother, my family, and everyone else who will grieve for me. I have asked God to forgive me. I have to say that what you are doing is wrong. If I thought my death would bring back Mr. Shell or would save someone else from a murder, I would volunteer, but I know it won't work. You don't teach respect for life by killing. I urge you not to kill anyone else. I ask God to forgive you for killing me. And now I ask God in the name of Jesus to receive my spirit."
He had me on the first part, lost me on the second.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm glad he took responsibility and
when he
admitted.
started in on the, I forgive you for killing me. They were doing their job, dude. They didn't make you go into that bank and rob them and all that.
That's right.
But yeah, it's I don't know, but at least he tried to say something. But let's talk about the death penalty for a minute.
Yep.
So when I was in college and studying criminal justice, they talked about criminal deterrence. How do you stop crime, right? Mm-hmm. And one of them, the ultimate one, being the death penalty. But the studies have proven for a crime deterrent to be effective, it has to be swift and certain, meaning that if you leave here today and you go and Lori Johnson, best banker chick in the world's bank, Hancock chick. Whitney, right down the street. That's where I do all my shit. But if you go in that bank and you kill someone, and you're on camera, you're going to get convicted, et cetera. But nowadays, you're going to go sit for 28 years in appeals on death row and all that. It's not effective as a deterrent. Now, let's take it. We don't live in this world. Let's put you in Woody's world. If you walked in the bank and you did it and they caught your ass and they put you to the nearest tree and strung you the fuck up, that's going to stop the normal person. A lot keeps an honest man honest, right?
Yeah.
And that would certainly deter people more than what you do now, because even like the Manson murderers, right? The dude got out of prison yesterday, or a chick got out of prison yesterday.
Yeah.
But it has to be swift and certain. The problem with our justice system is it is nothing if not slow.
Yeah, the wheels of justice turn slow, as they say, and I agree 100%. And they have a lot of technology now that they didn't have then. And look, we have another series that we do every now and then that talks about exonerations.
Right.
And certainly those happen. Certainly, you never want to think about people being sentenced to death that did not commit a crime, but it's happened.
I'm sure it's happened.
And
they've probably committed some crime. It's not that one, right?
Right. And so it certainly does happen, but the good thing about technology these days is it's almost impossible to get away with something very long like it used to be. And I think about serial killers in particular, because DNA has come so far. You almost can't breathe on somebody without being able to figure out who it was.
Right. And when I started, we couldn't even get DNA done, right? But I'll take it a step further, and it just trips me out because I think about it every day, everywhere I go, because of what you told me, and that is that you're on camera up to
it's like 46 times per day on average.
On average, right? So everywhere you go, you're on camera. But now that's 46 average. If you're somewhere and you're showing your ass, now look at how many videos going viral. Everybody wants to shoot a video and post shit. Yeah. And so they not only the advances in technology and DNA and forensics and the familiar DNA and just everything, the the computers they use to reenact crime scenes and to trace the bullets and everything else. All this technology, as it gets better, but you also have all these cameras and people are more aware, and you have social media now, which shit you didn't have back in the 80s. The internet wasn't invented.
Yeah, so when you're looking for a suspect, the sheriff's office can just post that on social media and automatically thousands and thousands of people see it. Back in the day when Woody was doing cases, you had to go door to door sometimes.
You had to go to door every time, and you waited, and you had to haul ass. I can tell you so many cases that I had to haul ass to Channel 2, Channel 33, and Channel 9 to get them the press release before they went on air at 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock, or not 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock or whatever. This is before Fox was even in Baton Rouge.
Sure.
And so that was it. That's all you had, and you only have a small percentage of the population that watches the fucking news, the local news. And
great point.
So, but as the and I agree with you. So I certainly wouldn't want anybody to be wrongfully executed, and we've talked about and given shout outs on the stories that people who have been exonerated. But as the technology advances, as the DNA advances, so do the crimes and the defenses for the crimes, meaning that there's no more respect for life. Yeah. Everybody just thinks you pull a trigger and there's no consequence, right? They have never worked a homicide scene. They've never had to sit with a crying family and all that. But more importantly, the defense, right? Mm-hmm. Because all these trials and all these cases that come in the years before, these lawyers are learning about it in law school. Yeah. And if you choose to do the criminal path, you're going to know about it. And then all these cases have been cited. So you have volumes and volumes and volumes of more information, just like the DNA is so far advanced now and all these other crime fighting techniques. The defense has so many more techniques to use against the prosecution. And that's why we got people like the one guy who's the second longest living on death row, and damn it, I can't remember his name. That he and his lover murdered that little boy and raped him right here in St. Parish on the river, and I did a story on that. But he's been on death row like 29 years now. The other dude, his accomplice was on death row. Fuck, he died of natural causes. Yeah, I mean, this dude's like 80 years old now, something like that. So it is what it is, and we wanted to bring y'all this series. And Jim's got one more. Yeah. And then the Boone series will be locked up for
patron members. So we're going to tell you about Elmo Sagne.
I know that name.
Yeah. And so many of you, it may click, and we'll tell you after we do this particular segment why it did click for you. And Elmo Sagne was executed in 1984 by electrocution, gruesome Gertie. Give you the facts of the case. On the evening of November 4th, 1977, David LeBlanc, who was 16, and Loretta Ann Bork, who was 18, attended a high school football game. Later that evening, the couple, they go park in a remote area of St. Martin Parish. Look, back in those days, that was parking, right?
Right.
You know, you take your girlfriend and you go somewhere and you make out a little bit.
Go by the LSU lakes and call it the submarine races. What are you doing here, son? Watching
submarine races. Yeah. So they go parking, I guess you could say, and that area of St. Martin Parish, it was kind of like a lover's lane. That's kind of where everybody, it's a pretty little lake, and the girls would feel romantic, think it was romantic or whatnot. Later that night, approximately 1 a.m., Elmo Patrick and Eddie James Sagne were rabbit hunting together, and they come across a couple's car. Rabbit hunting at night, huh, Woody?
Yeah, right. That's not legal.
Yeah. Using a badge one of the brothers had obtained while working as a security guard, and both armed with .22 caliber rifles, the two approach and enter LeBlanc's car. The victims were informed they were trespassing and that they would have to be brought to the landowner to determine if that landowner wanted to press charges. Now, this is young kids, right? So they believe that.
Yeah.
They also confiscate each teen's driver's license to kind of further their act of we're the cops.
Your license, registration.
Yep. Miss Bork and Mr. LeBlanc were then handcuffed and placed in the back seat of their own car.
And they brought handcuffs too.
Brought handcuffs. They were, which tells you
they fucking
this wasn't their first rodeo. Leaving their own car behind, the Saunier brothers take the teen's car and they basically drive the couple 21 miles to a remote oil field located in Iberia Parish. In Iberia Parish, y'all, this is oil field country.
Right.
Everybody just about in Iberia Parish works in the oil fields.
Except for Tabasco.
Yeah, except for Tabasco. That's right. The other famous Iberia employer. Now, this is an area that was well known to the defendants. Once at the oil field, both victims were removed from the car. David LeBlanc was taken to the woods and they handcuffed him to a tree. Loretta Bork was taken a short distance away and she was raped by Elmo Saunier. She then reluctantly agreed to have intercourse with Eddie Saunier on the condition that they would release her and Mr. LeBlanc afterwards. Upon completion of the rapes, Patrick Saunier removed the handcuffs and brought them back to the road where they were parked. At that point, Patrick Saunier told his brother, he starts freaking out and he says, I'm going to be sent back to Angola.
Oh, shit.
It's an exact quote. He had done some time in Angola. Should the victims notify police? So David LeBlanc and Loretta Bork were then forced to lie side by side, face down, and each were shot 3 times at close range in the back of the head. So execution style, pretty much. The Sauniers then drove LeBlanc's vehicle back to the original site where the couple was first accosted in order to pick up their own vehicle. Remember, they left that at the scene. They get there and the car has a flat tire. The brothers use a jack from the LeBlanc vehicle, and this is important. They used that jack to apply a spare tire, and that jack was later seized by police from the trunk of Saunier's car. So there's your evidence.
Right.
These 2 rocket scientists use a jack
and then put it
in their own car. Yeah.
Shit bag.
Dumbass. Yeah. So the brothers then destroyed the victim's driver's license, and in the following day, the rifles, they disposed of those. They actually buried them in remote areas. Investigations also revealed that between $30 and $40 were stolen from the victims prior to the arrest. They noticed this money missing, and of course they tied that back to them. The Sauniers were arrested on December 5th of 1977 following a tip from a local man who reported seeing the blue Dodge Dart parked in a remote area during the early morning hours of November 5th. They were advised of their rights, taken to the sheriff's office in New Iberia. And there, Patrick Saunier, he starts singing like a canary, signs verbal and written confessions, and was transferred to the parish prison. While en route, he starts making other statements to the officer. So he's singing. The following day, he even agrees to let him videotape a confession, and all 3 statements indicated that Patrick had participated in the abduction and had personally shot them. The police, after the basic directions from Patrick Saunier, recovered the 2 rifles that he buried. Ballistic test indicated that the bullets taken from the victim's head and brass casings were from that actual rifle. So they've got everything they need. The defendant and his brother, they get indicted on 2 accounts of first-degree murder. And in 1978, they basically go to court. Of course, they plead not guilty because they have nothing to lose. But they do get convicted. And so they get executed. And I'm going to read you just a Times-Picayune, which Times-Picayune is the
major newspaper in New Orleans.
Right. Huge newspaper there.
New Orleans in Mississippi area.
And in 1984, they got executed. Saunier gets executed for that double murder, and this is Elmo Saunier. He was convicted of the slayings of Loretta Bork and her fiance, David LeBlanc. He was the 3rd person executed in Louisiana in 4 months at that time. Robert Wayne Williams was executed December 14th for killing a Baton Rouge supermarket guard, and he was the first person executed since 1961. So there was a big delay between 61
and
and
the moratorium on it.
Yep. So basically, when they got out of that moratorium, they started executing everybody. Yeah, we got some people waiting in line.
Tired of feeding you.
That's right. That's right. And at that time, Woody and listeners, Ross Maggio was the warden at Angola, and he said that Sagne spent his last day with Sister Helen Prejean, a New Orleans nun who served as a spiritual advisor and a female friend who was a lawyer but not involved in his case. The condemned man ate a steak dinner and was kept up to date as the 5 courts turned down his 11th hour pleas of stay. So when you get executed, you basically have that last 24 hours is spent by your attorneys trying to get everyone to stay your execution. So he didn't have any of that. And they went on with it. As he was led to the execution chamber, he looked at LeBlanc and said, Mr. LeBlanc's the father, basically, of LeBlanc that was shot and killed. He says, I can understand the way you feel. I have no hatred in my heart as I leave this world, and I ask God to forgive what I have done. He then asked LeBlanc for forgiveness. Immediately after, Godfrey Bourke, the father of the other victim, who also witnessed, said, he didn't ask me, which is, he obviously and rightfully felt offended for that. Both fathers sat expressionless with their arms crossed as the execution was carried out. They declined to talk to reporters afterwards. Sagne's last words were addressed to Prejean. He said, I love you. And she replies, I love you too. Sagne, wearing blue jeans and a blue shirt, was then strapped to the death chair. Witnesses said he appeared to be smiling. At 12:07, his body was jolted with 2,000 volts of electricity, followed by 500 volts for 10 seconds. The 2,000 volts was for 20.
What? The
sequence was repeated, and there was no movement after the second jolt. So as Woody has told us in the past on this show, they don't just lift that lever and jolt you one time. Exactly. They leave it up, pull it down. Leave it up, pull it down. And
20 seconds is a long time.
It's a long time, man. But, his victims didn't even get that last 20 seconds, right? Sick. So
can you imagine laying side by side and you pretty much know they're going to kill you, but then you hear 3 shots from one rifle, and whoever the boy or the girl got shot first. What was the other one thinking?
Yeah,
I mean, you're dead.
You went to your death, scared to death, and that's just horrible. And so you may have, obviously, you recognize Helen Prejean if you've listened to our show, and this guy, these brothers, the Sagne brothers, as well as Robert Wayne Williams, that was the character for Dead Man Walking, basically, where they based that character was really off of 2 separate people. Yeah. And so in the opening scenes of Dead Man Walking, that's where it shows that Lover's Lane murder that we just told you about. And so it was a real deal. So Sister Helen Prejean, real person. She's still alive to this day. And regardless of where you sit on the death penalty, her heart's in the right place. She, and I don't fault her. We may not see eye to eye on certain things, but I think she's a wonderful human being.
Yeah, she is.
And still alive to this day. And
we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, if you happen to be listening, Sister Prejean, we'd love to have you on and share your views.
I know her. I know someone. Yeah, that would be a great show.
Yeah, it really would. So if you know her out there, and get word to her that we come to her if she needs us to. No problem. And so that is a wrap on that series. We are going to have, for you Patreon members, we're going to have just a few that we're going to do just for you guys. The final, I think it's 4 or 5 that we have left to feature on that series, just for you guys. And we saved some good ones for you patron members.
And if you want to become a patron, go to Patreon and type in Bloody Angola.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. That's all you got to do. It'll pull it up. We have several different tiers. Of course, I know a lot of y'all like those transcriptions. We do transcribe all those episodes just for patron members. And we put them in PDF format, so you can download those. You can actually print them out, and you can read them like a book. Right. So some people like to read.
Right. I still like to read too.
Yeah. So
I think that's a pretty genius idea.
Absolutely. And don't forget, as we mentioned at the beginning, vote. Go.
Hey, Mom, I know you're listening to this because you love Bloody Angola, and I know you read every single night.
Yes.
My mom likes, she's
love it
in her early, well, I won't tell her age, but she works out every day still.
Yeah.
And but she listens to us when she works out.
Miss Overton, we appreciate you.
But
thank you.
She likes to read more.
Yeah.
So, Mom,
she's a sharp lady.
You can get to the PDF of
that's
transcripts. So.
That's right.
Hey, we love all y'all. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. You rock. Thank you again for getting us nominated for Best History Podcast and then the overall Best in the World, Adam Curry's People's Choice. Go to podcastawards.com and vote for us if you would, please. We've only got I think less than 2 weeks left.
Yeah. So
hey, just to be nominated as fire to make the finals would be sweet. To win it all,
blessing,
right?
Blessing, total blessing, and we love you. Appreciate all of y'all very much. Until next time, I'm Jim Chapman.
And I'm Woody Overton,
your host of Bloody
Angola,
a podcast 142 years in the making.
Complete story of America's bloodiest prison.
Peace.
I walk a straight line, shackled and chained. Oh, gruesome Gertie is calling my name. There is no mercy in this penitentiary. Just ask the Hill String Gang or Angola 3. I'm here for life, I'm here to die.